You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein ON Gelt show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein ON Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
We're talking now with Daniel Polisar. Dan is among the founders of the Shalem Center and has served during the past decade as research director, academic director, editor-in-chief of the center's journal, Azure, and since 2002, Dan's been the president. Previously, he was founder and director of Peace Watch, a non-partisan Israeli organization that monitored Israeli and Palestinian compliance with the Oslo Accords, and he headed the Peace Watch observer team during the January 1996 Palestinian elections. Dan received his BA in politics from Princeton University and his PhD in government from Harvard University, where he was the recipient of Truman and Fulbright scholarships and of a Mellon Fellowship. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Pleasure to be with you.
Thanks. Listen, I just want to talk a little bit today about the Shalem Center. The Shalem Center is heading towards establishing Israel's first Ivy League level college in Israel. I'd like to talk about that from the fundraising standpoint, but before we do that, could you please give us a brief introduction to what the center is about and why you're starting the college?
Sure. The Shalem Center started in 1994 with a mission of trying to improve leadership in Israel and throughout the Jewish world through the power of ideas. In our view, the strength of the Jewish state was dependent on the ability of its leaders. And leaders is not just political leaders. It's business leaders, it's academic leaders, it's cultural figures, it's people in the world of journalism. Their ability to both develop the policies that the country needs and also to articulate for the next generation why it's important to have this state, to have this country, and for them to be active citizens within it. That's where we started. We built it up as a research institute and think tank. And today, we see the biggest challenge as launching a college which is going to provide this kind of education for the next generation, and we hope generations of Israelis.
Fabulous. Okay, good luck on that. How big do you expect the college to be?
We expect it to be small, certainly in terms of scale of Israeli research universities. We're going to start with 100 students in each entering class, and ultimately, once we've grown it, we would hope to reach a total of 250 students in each class, making for a total of 1,000 undergraduates. Our experience is, and the experience that we've seen in other institutions, is that if you keep it sufficiently small, you can keep your standards high and you can have really strong, durable contact with the students. And that's our hope. We are aiming to launch it in the fall of 2012, by which time we'll get it accredited and leap over the various other obstacles we need to face.
Got it. Okay, so I guess one of the big obstacles you're facing has to do with raising money and fundraising. It appears that the world of fundraising has certainly changed dramatically over the past 20 years. In fact, many not-for-profit organizations have replaced their, quote, donor base with investors. In fact, there was a book that came out recently by Matthew Bishop and Michael Green, who wrote a book called Philanthrocapitalism, How the Rich Can Save the World, which describes this phenomenon of people becoming more investors than donors. Have you found a change in the nature of funders with whom you work?
We have, even within the 15 years since we've been operating, and the change is much more pronounced when we talk to people from more established institutions who tell us tales of the donors who would just write them a check for $100,000 or $1 million or $5 million and tell the management of the institution, you guys know better than I do what to spend it for, just give me a report periodically. We don't have donors like that. Our donors see themselves very much as partners. They want to know up front what the problems are that we're likely to face. They want to be real partners in terms of choosing how we invest their philanthropic dollars in particular projects at Shalem College. And they want to study very closely our management team to make sure that we're up to the standards that they're accustomed to. So we see this constantly, and these trends seem to be getting stronger and stronger. I should add, from my point of view, it's very positive. Because we then benefit not only from the funds these people provide, but from their real knowledge about how to build an institution, and they're freely sharing that knowledge, and we've learned a great deal from it. So, to my mind, this is a positive development.
And you don't suffer from meddling?
I wouldn't consider what they're doing to be meddling. I want to draw a distinction. If a donor says, I want to pick the person who's going to occupy your chair in the study of Jewish philosophy, that's meddling, and we let them know right up front. That's an academic decision. It's going to be made by the appropriate academic group of people, and if you find that to be too onerous a restriction, then unfortunately we'll have to turn down whatever money you would be giving us. And virtually all the donors we deal with understand that. Where they do want to get involved is on determining the institution's priorities for how we're going to get to where we want to go. They want to make sure that our investment policies are sound. They sometimes ask to meet with some of our top management people, whether it's a CFO or a COO or other people taking a leadership role, and then they share their candid views about those people, and if they don't like them, they would end up not serving as partners with us. So that's the kind of involvement they have, and to my way of thinking, they're keeping us on our toes. They're forcing us to have the high standards that we ought to have anyway.
It sounds like you're running more a Wall Street-style firm than sort of the old-fashioned college where, as you said, everyone just donated the money and said, good luck.
Well, the people who I'm going in to meet with, and a lot of them are Wall Street people, they're in the hedge fund world, the VC world, and so on. The meeting right before the one they had with me was somebody who's from that world, and implicitly they're comparing me and my team to these other people. Do we have a good idea? Do we know how to make that idea happen? They're regularly saying, well, we see you as a startup. Here's how we evaluate startups. Tell me what you think about where you folks stand on in the following areas. So it's from their point of view, it's explicit. And as I said, I think that's fine. There's some outstanding financial institutions, and if we can learn from them, it'll only make us more effective.
Gotcha. Many people, to refer back to the book on philanthropic capitalism, many people complain that this concept of philanthropic capitalism is creating a new age of plutocracy, where Carlos Slim and Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, those types, the billionaires, are altering the values of the societies simply through the brute force of their huge wealth. So colleges and universities have been struggling with this problem for ages, how to maintain their academic objectivity while still working with their donors. Do you see this? This Shalem Center is also a very big philosophy type of organization. This is a real philosophical challenge to have the ultra-rich being the funders as opposed to, let's say, the government or something a little more democratic. How do you see that playing itself out?
Well, if the world of philanthropy were truly dominated by the three people you mentioned and a few other people who are at the top of the list of wealthiest people in the world, then I think it might be a problem. But as we're all aware, in the wealth creation that's occurred over the last couple of decades, it's been in many respects, if not a democratic process, certainly one that's highly decentralized. There are hundreds, thousands of people who have become quite wealthy, and a large number of whom have become quite philanthropic, who are not household names by any stretch of the imagination, and it's those people who are really picking up the burden, the brunt of philanthropic giving over the last decade or two, and to those people, among others, who are powering the growth of Shalem College. So what we actually see is an opening up that now a variety of viewpoints can get the kind of funding that will enable them to compete in the marketplace of ideas, and not just a small number. You mentioned that people view it as more democratic if the government is doing the funding, although in some kind of theory that's correct because the government responds to the demands within society. In practice, government decisions tend to be more narrow, less bold, less entrepreneurial than having those kinds of decisions made by a decentralized group of philanthropists. So in our case, we're starting a private college which has a view that is different in certain educational issues than the dominant universities in Israel. We're not expecting to get government money. We expect it to be privately funded. And I think over time this is going to lead to a lot more pluralism, a lot more competition in the realm of ideas, and I think it's actually very much a democratizing force.
We're speaking to Dan Polisar, the president of the Shalem Center, which is opening up the Shalem College. Dan, you mentioned the concept of democracy and other colleges. You mentioned other universities. Are there other colleges like the Shalem College, which we can expect, or we've heard rumors of their opening, perhaps as well?
Well, outside of Israel, there's a whole movement of founding colleges in what you could consider the Anglo-American liberal arts tradition, in which students first get a very broad education in a range of fields that intensively develops their analytical skills and their creativity, and only after that do they begin majoring in a particular specialty. So there's a trend that shows such colleges opening up from Canada to Poland, Slovakia, Russia, the Netherlands has a number of such places. So in that sense, there is a trend. Within Israel, there is not yet a trend, but one of the ways that we're going to gauge our success is whether we see, after Shalem College opens, and we hope is successful, whether there are others who follow suit and bring the liberal arts model into Israel. But for the moment, rumors of others doing so are premature.
I got you. And are the bigger universities concerned about what you're doing, or they don't see you as real competition to what they've been supplying?
Well, we've been in touch with a number of leading figures in Israeli academia, and one of the things that has been really gratifying is the degree to which they've encouraged us in this venture and said that from the perspective of Israeli society, having a liberal arts college like the one Shalem wants to start is a positive development. They've also, in some cases, indicated that it's probably easier for us to start it as a standalone college than it would be for them to create a liberal arts track within an existing university that already has very strong departments. Departments tend to be opposed to this kind of multidisciplinary approach. They prefer specialists, preferably within their own departments. So we've been really gratified by that kind of encouragement. We just hope that it continues throughout the accreditation process and continues through the competition, which we hope will be in a positive spirit for students when we first launch this school.
Fabulous. Okay, listen, Dan Polisar of the Shalem Center, we hope so too, and we wish you all the best of success in the Shalem Center and in getting the Shalem College up and running in 2012. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You've been listening to the Goldstein on Gelt Show with money maven Doug Goldstein. Doug's weekly radio show is heard around the world, but if you miss it, you can download the podcast at www.goldsteinongelt.com. The Goldstein on Gelt Show gives you up-to-date financial ideas so you can get on the path to financial freedom. If you'd like your questions answered on the air or off, send Doug an email to doug@profile-financial.com. It's your money for your future, so join Doug every week to build your wealth on the Goldstein on Gelt Show.